Hello friends. Welcome to the DXD Tales. How are you all? So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Issei was the war god who commanded the armies of heaven and hell. Issei x Rias Gremory x Athena. Also be sure to subscribe and like this video. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. Battlefield Memories. The dream came again that night. He same one that had haunted Issei Hyodo for weeks now. A vast battlefield stretched before him, not of earth and stone but of starlight and void. Armies clashed across dimensional planes, beings of light and shadow locked in eternal combat. From his vantage point atop a crystalline spire, Issei, no, not Issei, someone else, commanded them all with precise, devastating orders that flowed from his lips like poetry. Third Celestial Legion, create suppression field Omega. Hellborn Vanguard, pincer maneuver through the fourth dimension. Dragon Core, aerial bombardment pattern chaos. The word S made no logical sense to his waking mind, yet in the dream, they carried the weight of absolute authority. Each command shifted the tide of battle, saving countless lives while precisely eliminating threats. He felt the burden of every death, every tactical sacrifice, yet also the responsibility of protecting something infinitely precious. Then came the moment that always jolted him awake, a blinding light. A terrible scream that transcended language, and the sensation of being torn apart molecule by molecule. Issei shot upright in bed, sweat-drenched sheets tangled around his legs. His heart hammered against his ribs like a prisoner demanding release. 3:47 a.m., his clock displayed in accusatory red numerals. Always the same time, down to the minute. Just a dream, he muttered, runnin'. Trembling fingers through his sweat-dampened brown hair. Just a really weird, stupidly detailed, exactly the same every night dream. The problem wasn't just the dreams themselves but what came after. Ever since they'd started, Issei had noticed changes. His reflexes had sharpened to the point where he'd caught a fly between his fingers during math class without even looking up from his textbook. His mind analyzed social dynamics and spatial relationships with military precision. Yesterday, he'd mentally mapped 7 different escape routes from the school cafeteria while calculating combat effectiveness of various lunch trays as improvised weapons. Issei Hyodo, unremarkable second-year high school student, middling grades, no athletic distinctions, was thinking like a battle-hardened general. Sleep was clearly a lost cause. Sighing, he swung his legs over the edge of the bed and padded to the window. Kuo Town slumbered peacefully beneath a canopy of stars, oblivious to his internal turmoil. Something about the constellation patterns tugged at his memory, not as star charts but as troop positions in a cosmic war. "You're losing it, Issei," he whispered to his reflection in the glass. "Completely losing it." Morning arrived with cruel swiftness. Issei navigated the familiar route to Kuo Academy on autopilot, his mind still half trapped in the dream realm. He barely noticed the cherry blossoms drifting lazily across his path or the admiring glances from female classmates, a recent phenomenon he'd been too preoccupied to properly appreciate. Earth to Issei. "You in there, buddy?" A hand waved before his face, snapping him back to reality. Matsuda, one of his 2 best friends, peered at him with exaggerated concern. "Sorry," Issei mumbled, forcing a smile. "Didn't sleep well, again." Motohama adjusted his glasses, light glinting off the lenses. "That's the 3rd time this week. Maybe you should see a doctor." "I'm fine," Issei insisted, though. The words rang hollow even to his own ears. "Just weird dreams." "Ooh, what kind of dreams?" Matsuda wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. "The good kind with Rias Gremory and Akano Himahima." Issei shook his head, unable to summon enthusiasm for what would normally be his favorite topic of conversation. The school's 2 most beautiful 3rd years hardly seemed important compared to the cosmic battles raging in his subconscious. "No, nothing like that. Just war dreams. Fighting, strategy, that kind of thing." His friends exchanged worried glances. "War dreams," Motohama repeated. "Since when are you into military stuff?" "I'm not," Issei replied. "That's what makes it weird." Their conversation halted as they entered the school grounds. Something felt different today, a tension in the air, a subtle wrongness that prickled at Issei's newfound senses. His eyes automatically scanned the courtyard, identifying potential threats and escape routes. The behavior was becoming second nature, as natural as breathing. The morning passed in a blur of lectures and note-taking. Issei found himself drawing intricate battle formations in his notebook instead of the actual course material. The diagrams flowed from his pencil with disturbing precision, flanking maneuvers, troop compositions, terrain advantages. When he caught himself labeling one unit as Seraphim Archers, he slammed the notebook shut, earning a disapproving glare from his literature teacher. Lunchtime offered no reprieve. The cafeteria's cacophony of voices assaulted his heightened senses, each conversation somehow distinct yet overlapping in a symphony of mundane teenage concerns. Issei sat alone, having begged off from his usual group, picking at food that tasted like ash. A shadow fell across his table. "May I join you?" The voice was melodious, cultured, with an underlying strength that commanded attention rather than requested it. Issei looked up to find himself staring into the impossibly blue eyes of Rias Gremory. Several emotions warred within him simultaneously. Typical teenage hormonal awe at the proximity of Kuo Academy's most beautiful student, confusion at why she'd approach someone like him. And, most disturbing of all, a tactical assessment of her as a potential ally or threat. Sure, he managed, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. Rias sat with effortless grace, her crimson hair cascading over her shoulders like liquid fire. Up close, there was something otherworldly about her beauty, something that triggered warning signals in Issei's increasingly paranoid mind. "You're Issei Hyodo," she stated rather than asked. "Second year, Class 2B. He nodded, unsure how to respond to her knowledge of his details. "I've been watching you," she continued, leaning forward slightly. Something predatory flickered behind her smile. "You've changed recently." Ice trickled down Issei's spine. "What do you mean?" "Your movements, your awareness." Her eyes narrowed fractionally. "The way you scan every room for exits, the way you've started carrying yourself. Like a warrior instead of a student." The cafeteria suddenly seemed too small, too confined. Issei's hand tightened around his plastic fork, mentally calculating how to use it as a weapon if necessary. The thought was so absurd, planning to defend himself against the school idol with cafeteria cutlery, that he almost laughed. "I don't know what you're talking about," he lied, proud of how steady his voice remained. Rias tilted her head, studying him with the intensity of a scientist examining a particularly fascinating specimen. "I think you do, and I think we should talk about it, privately. The old school building after classes end today. I'll be waiting." Without giving him a chance to respond, she rose with the same fluid grace and departed, leaving a wake of whispers and envious glares behind her. "Dude." Matsuda materialized beside him, practically vibrating with excitement. "Rias Gremory just talked to you. What did she say? Is she into you? Did she confess?" Issei barely heard the questions. His mind was already formulating plans, contingencies, escape routes. Something was very wrong, and his instincts, these new, battle-hardened instincts, screamed that whatever waited in the old school building would irrevocably change his life. He was right, but not in any way he could have predicted. The old school building loomed against the afternoon sky, its Victorian architecture incongruous with the modern campus surrounding it. Shadows lengthened as Issei approached, casting the structure in ominous silhouette. Every step felt like a march toward execution, yet something deeper than curiosity propelled him forward. The massive wooden doors creaked open at his touch. Inside, dusty sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, painting the entrance hall in fragments of colored light. The building appeared empty, but Issei's heightened senses detected multiple presences upstairs, 4. Possibly 5 individuals waiting in silence. His hand instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there, had never been there, yet felt like a phantom limb in its absence. Swallowing hard, he ascended the grand staircase, each footfall deliberately silent despite having no training in stealth techniques. At the top floor, ornate double doors marked with an unfamiliar crest beckoned. Before he could knock, a voice called from within. "Enter, Issei Hyodo. We've been expecting you." The room beyond was opulent. Aristocratic furnishings, antique bookcases, and velvet curtains framing tall windows. 5 individuals occupied the space, arranged in what Issei immediately recognized as a defensive formation with clear lines of sight and overlapping fields of fire. Rias Gremory sat behind an imposing desk, fingers steepled beneath her chin. To her right stood a raven-haired beauty Issei recognized as Akano Himahima, the school's second idol. On her left, A.P. E-tight white-haired girl perched on the arm of a sofa, expression blank but eyes watchful. A handsome blonde boy leaned against a bookcase, his smile pleasant but eyes evaluating. And in the corner, arms crossed over an impressive chest, stood a tall young woman with short blue hair and the bearing of a knight. Not students, soldiers. The realization came with absolute certainty. "Thank you for coming," Rias said, gesturing to a chair positioned directly in their collective line of sight. "Please, sit." Issei remained standing, his body automatically shifting to a subtle ready stance. "I'd prefer not to. Not until I know what this is about." Something like approval flickered across Rias's face. "As you wish. Then I'll be direct. You're in danger, Issei Hyodo." "Great danger. From what?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer would relate to his dreams, his changes. "From what you are becoming," she replied. "Or rather, what you have always been but are only now remembering." The blonde boy stepped forward. "We've been monitoring unusual energy signatures throughout Kuo for weeks. Yesterday, they centered on you with such intensity that our instruments nearly overloaded." "Kiba," Rias cautioned, and the boy stepped back with a respectful nod. "Energy signatures," Issei repeated. "What are you people, some kind of cult?" Akano's laugh was musical and slightly sadistic. "Not quite, though I suppose that depends on perspective. We're devils," Rias stated matter-of-factly. "All of us. This is the Occult Research Club, our cover for operating at this school." Under normal circumstances, Issei would have laughed, assumed this was an elaborate prank, or feared for his safety among obvious lunatics. Instead, something deep within him, the same part that commanded armies in his dreams, accepted her words as simple truth. "Devils," he echoed. "From actual hell, the underworld," Rias corrected. "Though the human conception of hell is derived from limited understanding of our realm." "And you're telling me this because something is awakening within you, Issei Hyodo." Rias rose, power suddenly emanating from her like heat from a furnace. "Something ancient and potentially catastrophic. We need to determine if you're a threat to this territory, my territory, or a potential ally." The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Issei's muscles tensed, preparing for conflict even as his conscious mind struggled to process her words. "I'm just a normal high school student," he protested, the lie tasting bitter on his tongue. "No," said the white-haired girl, speaking for the first time. Her voice was soft but carried absolute conviction. "You are not." Before Issei could respond, the building shook with a tremendous impact. Plaster rained from the ceiling, and the stained glass windows shattered inward in a deadly spray of colored shards. "Barrier breach," the blue-haired girl shouted, materializing a sword from nowhere. "Multiple entities, approaching fast." "Kaneko, Kiba, defensive positions," Rias commanded. "Akano, prepare to counter. Xenovia, guard the artifact." They moved with practiced precision, not soldiers but warriors. Their human appearances melting away to reveal otherworldly characteristics. Wings, glowing sigils, inhuman eyes. Issei stood frozen, not in fear but in strategic assessment. His mind calculating threat levels and response options despite having no context for what was happening. Through the shattered windows poured what could only be described as abominations. Humanoid creatures with translucent skin revealing not organs but swirling darkness. Their limbs bent at impossible angles, and where faces should be, they had only vertical slashes filled with needle-like teeth. "Void touched," Rias hissed. "Here." "How?" The creatures moved with unnatural speed, attacking with razor-sharp appendages that extended and retracted like living weapons. The devil's responded with impressive displays of power. Akano calling down lightning, Kiba creating swords from thin air, Kaneko lifting and throwing furniture with impossible strength. Issei should have been terrified. Instead, battle clarity descended over him like a familiar cloak. He saw openings in the enemy's formation, weaknesses in their attack patterns. Without conscious thought, he moved. "Kiba, double, E-thrust pattern at the leader's left flank," he called out. "Kaneko, aerial object at 37 degrees to create debris field." "Akano, sustained current rather than strikes," they're using the discharge gaps to advance. The devils hesitated for only a fraction of a second before following his instructions. The effect was immediate. Their coordinated attack drove the creatures back, their advent age multiplying with each perfectly executed maneuver. "How are you?" Rias began, then ducked as a void creature leapt toward her. Issei moved without thinking, intercepting the attack with a spin Ning kick that connected with unnatural precision. The creature flew backward, crashing into two others. Pain lanced through Issei's leg, not from impact but from touching the thing's essence. It felt like his very soul was being corroded. "They absorb life energy on contact," he warned, the knowledge coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. "Don't let them touch your bare skin." More creatures poured in, their numbers seemingly endless. For every one the devils destroyed, two more appeared. They fought in eerie silence, no battle cries or pained screams, only the occasional whisper like wind through dead leaves. "We need to retreat," Zenovia called from her position guarding a cloth-covered object in the corner. "There are too many." "No," Issei contradicted, authority filling his voice. "They're funneling through a spatial tear. Block their entry point and we can contain this." He pointed to a shimmering distortion near the ceiling, barely visible to normal sight but obvious to his heightened perception. The creatures were squeezing through this dimensional wound like maggots from rotting flesh. "Rias, your power of destruction, can you target something that's specific?" She stared at him, crimson energy already gathering around her hands. "How do you know about my power?" "I just know," he admitted. "Can you do it?" A fierce smile spread across her face. "Watch me." With elegant precision, she extended one hand and released a concentrated beam of destructive energy directly at the spatial tear. It connected with a sound like reality itself screaming in protest. The tear sealed with a thunderclap of imploding air, cutting off the creature's reinforcements. "Now we finish these," Athena said, electricity crackling around her form. The battle turned in their favor. The remaining void creatures quickly dispatched by the devil's combined powers. Throughout the fight, Issei continued calling out tactical adjustments, each one perfectly suited to maximize air effectiveness while minimizing risk. When the last creature dissolved into wisps of dark matter, an uneasy silence fell over the ruined room. All eyes turned to Issei, who stood amid the destruct. Qian breathing hard but otherwise unharmed, his school uniform torn but his stance still combat-ready. That, Rias said quietly, was not the behavior of a normal high school student. Issei looked down at his hands, which had moved with trained precision he'd never consciously learned. "No, I guess it wasn't. You knew exactly what those creatures were," Athena observed, moving closer with cautious interest. "You knew their weaknesses, their attack patterns, even how they were entering our dimension. And you commanded us," Kiba added, sheathing a sword that hadn't existed minutes before. "With legitimate tactical brilliance." Quote, "I don't know how," Issei insisted, frustration building. "I just saw what needed to be done." Zenovia approached, still carrying the cloth-wrapped object. "President, should we proceed with the test? After what we just witnessed?" Rias nodded slowly. "Yes, I think we must. These attacks are accelerating, and if our suspicions are correct." She turned to Issei, her expression grave but eyes alight with something like hope. "Issei Hyodo, we believe you may be connected to something ancient and powerful. Something that could help us understand why creatures from the void are suddenly appearing in the human world." "Connected how?" he demanded, patience fraying. "Will someone please explain what's happening to me?" Instead of answering directly, Rias gestured to Zenovia. The blue-haired devil approached and carefully unwrapped the object she'd been protecting, a fragment of what appeared to be ancient metal, roughly triangular and inscribed with symbols that made Issei's eyes hurt to look at directly. "This is a relic recovered from a battlefield beyond time," Rias explained. "We believe it to be a fragment of a divine weapon, specifically a weapon belonging to a deity of war." The metal gleamed with an inner light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with Issei's heartbeat. Something about it called to him, a siren song of memory and power. "We need to determine if there's a connection between you and this artifact," Rias continued. "The test is simple but may be uncomfortable." "What do I need to do?" Issei asked, eyes fixed on the metal fragment. "Touch it," Zenovia said bluntly. "With blood." Under any other circumstances, Being asked to bleed on a strange artifact by self-proclaimed devils would have sent Issei running for the nearest exit. Instead, he extended his hand without hesitation. Do it. Zenobia produced a small ceremonial dagger. With clinical precision, she made a shallow cut across Issei's palm. The pain was sharp but fleeting. Blood welling up crimson and vital. Now touch the metal, Rias instructed, her voice tense with anticipation. Issei pressed his bleeding palm against the fragment. For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, pain, unimaginable, world-shattering pain erupted from his hand and engulfed his entire being. Issei screamed as memories not his own flooded his consciousness, battles across the cosmos. Armies of light and darkness commanded by his will, betrayal, sacrifice, dissolution of his very essence scattered across dimensions. The fragment blazed with gall. Den light that spread to encompass his entire body. The devils stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the divine radiance. Only Rias remained close, her expression a mixture of awe and vindication. It's him, she whispered. It's really him. The light receded, drawing back into Issei's form like water into a sponge. He collapsed to his knees, gasping, the world spinning around him. When he looked up, his eyes briefly flashed with golden fire. What just happened? He managed between ragged breaths. Before Rias could answer, the air behind her shimmered and tore open, not the rag. Jade wound through which the void creatures had entered, but a perfect circular portal rimmed with silver light. Through it stepped a woman of such breathtaking beauty and terrible authority that everyone in the room, devils included, instinctively lowered their gaze. She stood tall and regal, clad in gleaming armor that seemed fashioned from moonlight and determination. Her hair, black as midnight, was braided with silver thread and adorned with small owls crafted from some opalescent material. Her eyes, gray as storm clouds, fixed immediately on Issei with piercing intelligence. So, she said, her voice carrying the weight of ages, the prodigal god returns. Athena, Rias breathed, dropping into a formal curtsy despite her devil heritage. We didn't summon you. No, the goddess agreed, her gaze never leaving Issei. He did. His awakening reverberates across the divine realms. She approached Issei, who found himself unable to move, transfixed by recognition he couldn't possibly possess yet felt bone deep. She knelt before him, bringing her face level with his, studying him with the intensity of someone reclaiming a long-lost possession. Do you remember me, old friend? She asked softly. Do you remember anything? Issei swallowed hard. I know you, but I don't know how. Athena's smile was sad and knowing. You will. The memories are returning already, are they not? The dreams of cosmic warfare. The tactical knowledge no mortal should possess, the authority that makes even devils follow your commands without question. She reached out, her fingertips brushing his forehead with infinite gentleness. At her touch, another cascade of memories flooded him, softer this time, controlled. He saw himself, yet not himself, standing beside this woman on a battlefield of stars. Their armies, celestial and infernal alike, waited for their combined command. We were allies, he whispered. Friends. More than friends, less than lovers, she corrected. Counterparts. Balance. I was wisdom in war, you were war with wisdom. Athena and Ares, though that was never your true name among the gods. Issei's head snapped up. Ares, the Greek god of war. That's insane. You were never, just, anything. Bellorum, she interrupted, using a name that resonated through his very soul. You were the strategic mind behind the united armies of heaven and hell during the Great Void War. You were the commander who sacrificed himself to seal the breach between dimensions. She rose, extending her hand to help him stand. And now, when the void stirs once more, you have returned, reborn as a human boy with no memory of his divine essence. How very like you, to choose the most vulnerable form for your resurrection. Issei accepted her hand, rising unsteadily. The other occupants of the room watched in stunned silence, even Rias momentarily forgotten in the presence of this divine revelation. I don't understand, he said, though the truth of her words echoed through the fragments of memory now loose in his mind. If what you're saying is true, if I'm really some kind of war god, then why don't I remember? Why am I living as a normal human? Because you were unmade, Athena replied simply. Your divine essence was shattered to close the void breach. What we're witnessing now is your slow reconstitution, triggered by the proximity of the chi weapon fragment and the encroaching void entities. She turned to Rias, her manner shifting from intimate to commanding. Devil Princess, you have done well to locate and protect him during his vulnerable phase. Your house will be remembered when rewards are distributed. Rias inclined her head, but her eyes held a possessive gleam as she looked at Issei. House Gremory serves the greater balance, Lady Athena. We recognize the signs of divine re-emergence and acted accordingly. Athena's smile suggested she saw through the political maneuvering. Indeed. And now we must act with greater purpose. The void entities you faced today are merely scouts, harbingers of a greater incursion. If they've found him already, we have precious little time. Time for what? Issei asked, struggling to reconcile his 17 years of human memories with the cosmic war scenes now unfolding in his mind. To rebuild your divine arsenal, Athena stated. To reforge your alliances with heaven and hell. To prepare you to command once more. She gestured to the fragment that had triggered his partial awakening. That is but a splinter of your war spear, the weapon that once channeled your divine will across battlefields spanning creation. It was shattered and scattered across dimensional planes when you fell. Issei approached the fragment again, this time without fear. It hummed in response to his proximity. The symbols etched into its surface now perfectly legible to him though written in no earthly language. Where are the other pieces? He asked, somehow knowing the answer was crucial. Some are protected by former allies. Athena replied. Others are held by those who would prevent your return. Many are lost in dimensional pockets beyond conventional reach. We've been searching. G for artifacts matching the energy signature, Rias added. That's how we found this piece. Buried beneath Kuo Academy, of all places. Not coincidence, Kaneko murmured. Drawn to him. Athena nodded approvingly at the small devil. Precisely. Even fragmented, his divine essence calls to the scattered pieces of his power. As he awakens further, they will become easier to locate. And these void creatures? Kiba asked. They're after the artifacts as well. They're after him, Athena corrected grimly. The void remembers who sealed it away. It hungers for his essence, the only power that ever truly threatened it. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Issei stared at his hands, ordinary human hands that had apparently once directed the combined might of supernatural armies. I don't feel like a god, he said finally. I don't even feel particularly special. Akeno laughed softly. Yet you commanded a room full of devils during combat, knew the weakness. S's of extra-dimensional entities you'd never encountered before, and just activated a divine artifact with your blood. Special might be an understatement. This is merely the beginning, Athena assured him. As more of your essence returns, so too will your power and memories. And until then, Issei asked, these void things will keep coming after me, putting everyone around me in danger. Yes, Rias answered bluntly. Which is why you need protection and training. She stepped forward, standing opposite Athena like a rival claimant. I propose that Issei join my peerage as my pawn. Evil Pieces system could help stabilize his awakening while providing supernatural protection. Athena's expression darkened. You would bind a god to devil servitude. Have you lost your mind, daughter of Gremory? It would be temporary, Rias argued. A strategic alliance until his full power returns. And it would give him access to devil magic and resources. Unacceptable, Athena declared. He belongs in Olympus, among his divine kin, where we can properly facilitate his re-emergence. Excuse me, Issei interrupted, a strange confidence filling him. Don't I get a say in this? Both powerful women turned to him, surprise evident on their faces. For beings accustomed to absolute authority, the concept of asking his preference seemed novel. Of course, Rias recovered first, her smile diplomatic. What would you prefer, Issei? He considered for a moment, tactical assessment occurring automatically. I need information from both sides. I need training, and I need to understand what I'm becoming. He took a deep breath. But I also need to protect my human life, my family, my friends. I won't abandon them to save some cosmic balance I barely understand. Athena's expression softened slightly. Your human attachments are unexpected. But perhaps they will provide the anchor your divine self needs. She inclined her head. I propose a compromise. Remain in the human world under devil protection. But accept divine guidance and training from me. And when more of these void creatures come? Zenobia asked practically. We fight, Issei answered simply. Together. Devils, gods, whatever else is out there that stands against this void. If I really commanded armies before, I can do it again. The conviction in his voice surprised even him. Something was shifting inside him, human uncertainty giving way to divine purpose. The tactical dreams, the combat instincts, the natural authority, they weren't foreign impositions but his true nature reasserting itself. Rias and Athena exchanged measuring looks, centuries of divine devil tension evident in their postures. Finally, Rias extended her hand. An alliance, then. Devils and Olympians, united under his command once more. Athena clasped the offered hand, power crackling where immortal enemies touched in truce. So be it, though I suspect other pantheons and factions will soon join this equation. Let them come, Issei said, the words carrying subtle power. If this void is the threat you describe, we'll need every ally we can get. He picked up the fragment of his ancient weapon, feeling its resonance with his blood and essence. The metal reshaped itself in his grip, forming a dagger of exquisite balance and deadly purpose, a mere shadow of its former glory but a start. So, he said with gallows humor, I'm a reincarnated war god who once commanded heaven and hell, currently being hunted by cosmic horrors while trying to maintain a normal high school life. Did I miss anything? Athena's laugh was like silver bells. Only that the fate of all creation likely rests on how quickly you reclaim your divine essence, old friend. Great, Issei muttered, no pressure, as if in response to his sarcasm. The dagger pulsed with golden light. For a brief moment, everyone in the room glimpsed a superimposed image over Issei's ordinary form, a towering figure in armor crafted from conceptual authority rather than physical material, crowned with strategic insight, eyes blazing with divine purpose. Bellorum, the war god who commanded the armies of heaven and hell, reborn in human flesh, awakening to his true nature just as the ancient enemy stirred once more. The first battle had been fought and won. The war was just beginning. Chapter 1 End **# Chapter 2, Divine Diplomacy. Sleep eluded Issei that night. He lay motionless beneath rumpled sheets, staring at the ceiling as his mind replayed the day's revelations in an endless loop. The weight of divine identity pressed against his consciousness like an ocean current, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming, but always present. Ares, Bellorum, war god, commander of celestial and infernal armies. The titles felt simultaneously foreign and familiar, like clothing that didn't quite fit yet was undeniably tailored for him. This is insane, he whispered to the darkness. Completely insane, yet the evidence was undeniable. The fragment-turned dagger now rested on his nightstand, gleaming with subtle inner light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. When he'd tried to leave it behind at the old school building, the weapon had simply materialized in his pocket moments later. Athena had smiled knowingly. Divine artifacts answer to their master's essence, she'd explained. It recognizes you, even if you don't fully recognize yourself. Issei reached for the dagger now, its weight reassuring in his palm. Images flickered through his mind. The weapon in its original form, a magnificent spear that channeled his divine will across battlefields spanning creation. He'd called it, what? The name hovered just beyond recall, like a word on the tip of his tongue. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The phone Rias had given him after the battle, for emergency contact only, she'd insisted, displayed a message on its screen. Sleep. We begin training at dawn. How she knew he was awake, Issei couldn't guess. Devil powers, perhaps, or simply feminine intuition. Either way, she was right. If he was truly becoming, or remembering being, a war deity, he would need all his strength. He placed the dagger back on the nightstand and closed his eyes, willing sleep to come. Instead, memories that weren't his yet undeniably belonged to him cascaded through his consciousness. The observation platform hung suspended in void space. A construct of pure divine will rather than physical material. From this vantage point, Bellorum watched galaxies collide in slow motion, their celestial dance a strategic pattern only he could fully interpret. Magnificent, isn't it? Asked a voice like moonlight given form. Creation's greatest battle, fought not with weapons but gravity. Asterisk. He turned to find Athena beside him. Her divine aspect radiating wisdom and controlled power. In this realm beyond mortal perception, they appeared as concepts rather than beings, he the embodiment of strategic warfare. She the manifestation of tactical wisdom. Asterisk. A battle that will span billions of years, he acknowledged. Far beyond even our perception. Asterisk. Yet you watch it anyway. Her essence shifted closer to his. Always studying, always learning. This is why you succeeded where Ares failed. Asterisk. The name, his predecessor's name, not his own, sent ripples of discomfort through his divine form. Ares understood violence but not warfare. He saw bloodshed as the goal rather than the means. Asterisk. And you replaced him. Athena's essence conveyed what might have been affection. The Pantheon's greatest improvement. Asterisk. The Romans understood the distinction better, he noted. Mars carried strategic elements Ares lacked. Asterisk. Names and cultural interpretations, Athena dismissed. Temporary labels for eternal concepts. You've worn many names across many pantheons, as have I. Asterisk. Their attention returned to the colliding galaxies. Stars by the billions were being born and destroyed in the cosmic impact, each one a potential world. A potential battlefield. Asterisk. Something stirs beyond the boundaries, Bellorum said suddenly, his essence darkening with concern. A hunger that predates creation itself. Asterisk. Athena's form tensed. You sense it too, then. The void awakens. Asterisk. Yes. His divine perception expanded, scanning cosmic horizons far beyond mortal comprehension. The ancient enemy returns. We must prepare. Asterisk. Heaven and hell will never cooperate, she reminded him. Their conflict is foundational to this reality. Asterisk. Asterisk. Bellorum's essence pulsed with determination. Then I shall make them cooperate. Strategic necessity transcends ancient grudges. Asterisk. You would command angels and demons alike. Athena's tone held both admiration and concern. Even Michael and Lucifer. Asterisk. If existence itself is threatened. Bellorum's form solidified with purpose. Yes, I would command them all. Asterisk. Issei jolted awake, dawn light filtering through his bedroom curtains. The memory dream had been so vivid, so detailed, that for a moment he wasn't sure which reality was real, the cosmic conversation with Athena or his human bedroom with its ordinary furnishings. The dagger pulsed on his nightstand, confirming both were true. His phone chimed again. Another message from Rias. Training ground. Forest clearing east of town. 1 hour. Asterisk. Issei rose, muscles aching from yesterday's battle despite no visible injuries. As he dressed, he caught sight of his reflection in the mirror, normal teenage boy, unremarkable in every visible way. Yet something in his eyes had changed, a depth, a intensity that hadn't been there before. Downstairs, he found a note from his parents, working late tonight. Dinner in fridge, love you. Their ordinary lives continued, blissfully unaware that Air's son was apparently a reincarnating deity. Issei wasn't sure whether to be grateful for their ignorance or terrified for their safety. The walk to the training ground gave Issei time to consider his impossible situation. If Athena and Rias were to be believed, he was the reborn essence of a war god who had once commanded the combined armies of heaven and hell against an ancient cosmic entity. Now that entity was returning, and fragments of Issei's divine power were scattered across dimensional planes. Just your average high school problems, he muttered to himself, kicking a stone along the path. The forest east of Kuo town was old growth, trees towering overhead to form a natural cathedral. Issei followed an unmarked trail, guided more by instinct than direction. The morning air hung heavy with mist, diffusing sunlight into ghostly beams between branches. He heard the clearing before he saw it, the distinctive sounds of combat, power being channeled, instructions being called out. Pushing through a final curtain of foliage, Issei stepped into a scene of supernatural training. Rias's peerage worked through combat drills with focused intensity. Kiba practiced blindfolded wordplay against multiple wooden targets that moved on their own. Kaneko lifted boulders that should have been impossible for her small frame to budge. Akeno floated several feet above the ground, HTNING dancing between her outstretched fingers. Zenobia executed complex attack patterns with a massive sword that shifted forms at her command. Overseeing it all, Rias stood with arms crossed, Akka, Shanali offering correction or encouragement. She turned as Issei approached, satisfaction evident in her expression. "You're early," she noted. "Good. Promptness befits a commander." "I'm not commanding anyone," Issei protested automatically, though the tactical part of his mind was already analyzing the training regimen, identifying inefficiencies and potential improvements. Rias raised an elegant eyebrow. "Aren't you? You did quite well yesterday." Before Issei could respond, the air several yards away shimmered and tore open in a familiar silver-rimmed portal. Athena stepped through, no longer in full battle armor but dressed in a modernized chiton that somehow managed to look both ancient and fashionable. Behind her came two figures, a muscular man with a wild beard carrying what appeared to be a massive hammer, and a woman of ethereal beauty with flowing white gold hair. Hephaestus, Rias identified with a respectful nod. And Freya of the Vanir. The Olympians bring formidable allies. The Norse pantheon has its own stake in this conflict, Athena replied. The void threatens Yggdrasil as surely as Olympus. The bearded god approached Issei directly, studying him with expert eyes that seemed to see through flesh to the essence beneath. "So this is the vessel," he rumbled, voice like stones grinding together. "Hardly seems adequate to contain Belorum's power." "Appearances deceive, old friend," Athena cautioned. "His awakening has barely begun." Hephaestus grunted skeptically. "The spear of divine command was my finest work. If he's truly Belorum returned, he should be able to call the fragments to himself." "In time," Athena assured him. "For now, we focus on training and protection." Issei struggled to process the casual presence of multiple deities from different pantheons discussing him as if he were a project rather than a person. "Excuse me," he interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness, "but I'm standing right here. And I still don't fully understand what's happening to me." Freya laughed, the sound like silver bells in a spring breeze. "He has Belorum's directness, at least." She approached, moving with hypnotic grace. "You're being reborn, young one. Divine essence filtering back into mortal flesh, memories of cosmic warfare returning to a mind never designed to contain them. It's rather remarkable you're functioning at all." "Functioning is generous," Issei muttered. "I'm barely keeping up, which is why we're here," Rias interjected, stepping closer protectively. "To help you transition and prepare." The clear-ing suddenly filled with a brilliant golden light that forced everyone, gods included, to shield their eyes. When it faded, a new figure stood among them, a woman of breathtaking beauty with 12 magnificent white wings extending from her back. Her presence radiated compassion and authority in equal measure, and the very air around her seemed purified. "Gabriel," Athena acknowledged, tensing slightly. "Heaven joins our little gathering." The seraphim smiled with genuine warmth that somehow conveyed both love and caution simultaneously. "Athena of Olympus, it has been centuries." Her gaze swept the clearing, lingering momentarily on each devil before settling on Issei. "And this is the source of the divine ripples we've detected." Something about her presence made Issei's chest ache with recognition. Not personal memory but divine resonance. Part of him, the part that wasn't human, recognized her as both ally and occasional adversary across countless celestial campaigns. "Lady Gabriel," he greeted formally. The words coming without conscious thought. Heaven's messenger and commander of the Third Celestial Legion. Surprise flickered across Gabriel's perfect features. "You remember me, Belorum?" "Not exactly," Issei admitted. "The knowledge is there, but it's like reading someone else's diary. I know the facts but not the feelings behind them." Gabriel approached, her movement more like drifting than walking. She studied Issei with compassionate intensity, then glanced at the dagger secured at his waist. "A fragment of the divine spear," she observed. "So it's true. The prophecy unfolds." "Prophecy?" Rias asked sharply. "What prophecy?" "This isn't the place for such discussions," Gabriel replied diplomatically. "Too exposed, too vulnerable. If the void touched have found him once, they will again." Athena nodded reluctantly. "The seraphim is right. We need a secure location for proper counsel." "Gremory territory in the underworld," Rias suggested. "My brother has already prepared defensive measures." "Neutral ground would be preferable," Freya countered. "The divine realms of multiple pantheons converge beneath Kuo town. Why do you think so many supernatural events occur here?" We could utilize the nexus point. Too unstable, Hephaestus growled. The dimensional boundaries are already weakening. Gathering significant power there might accelerate the breach. Gabriel's expression remained serene despite the brewing disagreement. There is another option. The Vatican maintains a pocket dimension specifically designed for interfaction diplomacy. Neutral territory, maximum security, and accessible to all supernatural entities by invitation. Rias's expression soured. The Church. You expect devils to willingly enter Church territory. Diplomatic ground. Gabriel corrected. Sanctified against external interference but equally hospitable to all invited parties. Michael can arrange access within the hour. The gathered powers exchanged wary glances. Centuries of conflict and mistrust didn't dissolve easily, even in the face of cosmic threat. Issei watched the silent negotiations with growing frustration. Tactical asses. Sment automatically calculating the time being wasted. Enough, he said finally, his voice carrying unexpected authority. While we debate locations, those void creatures are regrouping. I vote for the Vatican option, fastest deployment. Established security protocols, and it sends a message of unified purpose. All eyes turned to him in surprise. Rias recovered first, a calculating smile playing at her lips. Well reasoned. House Gremory accepts the Seraphim's offer. Olympus concurs, Athena added, studying Issei with renewed interest. The Norse will attend, Freya agreed with a graceful nod. Gabriel's smile was radiant. Then it's settled. I'll make the arrangements immediately. She turned to Issei, her expression softening. You're beginning to remember your command voice, war god. That's encouraging. Before Issei could respond that he'd simply been annoyed by supernatural politics, the Seraphim vanished in another flash of golden light. Athena immediately turned to Rias. Your brother will attend, she confirmed. Circex wouldn't miss this for anything, Rias replied. A reincarnated war deity and a multi-faction summit. He's probably already choosing his outfit. Hephaestus grunted disapprovingly. Devils and their pageantry. This isn't a social event, girl. This is war council. In my experience, Freya interjected smoothly, the line between politics and warfare is often non-existent. Especially where divine interests intersect. Throughout this exchange, Issei stood silently, processing the implications. Hours ago, his biggest concern had been passing his next math exam. Now he was the focal point of a supernatural coalition involving devils, multiple pantheons, and heaven itself. What exactly happens at this summit? He asked finally. Assessment, planning, alliance building. Athena replied. The factions need to confirm your identity, evaluate the void threat, and establish command structures. And everyone's just going to, what? Take orders from me. Issei couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. I barely know what I'm doing. Not yet, Rias acknowledged. But parts of you remember. The tactical insights during yesterday's battle didn't come from nowhere. Which is why we must train what remains of your human form before the summit, Athena added. Your divine essence is returning, but your physical vessel requires conditioning to channel it properly. Issei looked around at the assembled supernatural powers. And you're all going to train me. In the next hour. Hephaestus laughed, the sound like an avalanche. An hour. Boy, we're gods. Time is more flexible for us. With a gesture from his massive hand, the clearing around them shimmered and changed. The forest remained, but the quality of light shifted subtly. And the distant sounds of Kuo town vanished completely. Welcome to a temporal fold, Freya explained, seeing Issei's confusion. A pocket of altered time flow. What will feel like days here will pass as minutes in your world. Convenient, Issei managed, wondering how many more supernatural revelations he could process before his brain simply shut down. Let's begin, Athena commanded. Her casual attire shimmering and transforming into battle armor. Hephaestus will assess your physical vessel. Freya will evaluate your aura and essence integration. Rias and her peerage will provide combat partners. I will oversee tactical development. And what exactly am I supposed to do? Issei asked. Athena's smile was predatory. Survive. The training that followed redefined Issei's understanding of pain, exhaustion, and his own capabilities. Hephaestus worked him through physical conditioning that would have killed an ordinary human, pushing muscles to failure then channeling divine energy to regenerate them stronger than before. Freya guided him through meditation techniques that allowed him to glimpse the fragmented divine essence slowly reintegrating with his human consciousness. Rias's peerage provided relentless combat practice. Kiba's speed, Kaniko's strength, Akino's magical versatility, and Zenovia's weapons mastery forced Issei to adapt continually, drawing on combat knowledge he didn't consciously possess but could access in moments of extremity. Throughout it all, Athena observed and occasionally intervened, her analytical commentary helping Issei understand the difference between instinctive reaction and strategic thinking. "You're fighting like a human with divine reflexes," she criticized after he narrowly defeated Kiba in a sparring match. "But you're capable of so much more. A true war deity doesn't just predict an opponent's next move, they reshape the entire battlefield to their advantage." "Easy for you to say," Issei panted, muscles screaming in protest. "You're not stuck in a body that spent 17 years playing video games instead of commanding armies. Your human perspective is both limitation and strength," Athena countered. Belorum's greatest asset was his ability to understand the frontline soldier's experience while maintaining strategic overview. Your human life has reinforced that connection. By what felt like the third day in the temporal fold, though apparently mere minutes had passed in the real world, Issei had progressed from stumbling through basic combat forms to executing complex tactical maneuvers that incorporated his growing awareness of divine energy. The dagger fragment responded to his will more readily, occasionally shifting form to accommodate different fighting styles. His connection to the divine spear strengthens, Hephaestus noted with grudging approval. Soon he may be able to call other fragments. Not soon enough, Freya countered, her expression troubled. His divine aura grows more distinct by the hour. The void will sense it across dimensions. Which is why we need the summit and a unified defense plan, Rias interjected. She had remained close to Issei throughout the training, her own power subtly supporting his when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. Issei collapsed against a tree trunk, sweat-soaked and trembling from exertion. As his breathing steadied, he realized something had changed in his perception. The forest around him appeared normal to ordinary sight, but underlying it, he could perceive energy patterns, ley lines crossing beneath the soil. The distinct supernatural signatures of each being present, even the temporal distortion maintaining their pocket of altered time. "I can see it," he murmured in wonder. "The energy framework underlying physical reality." Athena nodded in satisfaction. "Your divine perception awakens. This will accelerate your tactical development significantly." Before Issei could respond, a pulse of golden light signaled Gabriel's return. The seraphim materialized in the clearing, her expression serene but purposeful. "Preparations are complete," she announced. "The council chamber awaits. All major factions have accepted the invitation." Hephaestus immediately dissolved the temporal fold with a dismissive wave, reality snapping back to normal morning light. Issei staggered slightly as his perception readjusted. The training days compressed into memories that his body still felt acutely. "Is he ready?" Gabriel asked Athena directly. The wisdom goddess assessed Issei with critical eyes. "As ready as time permits. His divine essence continues to integrate, but slowly. Too much acceleration risks destabilizing his human form." "The fragmentation was thorough," Gabriel acknowledged. "By design, as I recall. Something passed between the two divine females, ancient knowledge or shared history that Issei couldn't quite grasp. Once again, he felt like a spectator to his own story. Watching immortal beings discuss his fate as if he were a chess piece rather than a person. "I'm standing right here," he reminded them, echoing his earlier frustration. Gabriel turned to him, compassion softening her perfect features. "Indeed you are, Belorum. Or do you prefer Issei Hyodo now?" The question struck him as oddly significant. "Issei," he answered firmly. "Whatever I was before, right now I'm Issei." "Names have power," Freya observed. "Especially for divine beings. Your choice is interesting." Before Issei could question her meaning, Gabriel extended her hand, a golden circle of light appearing beside her. "The portal will take us directly to the Vatican's diplomatic chamber. All expected attendees have been granted access for the duration of the summit." Rias gestured to her peerage, who immediately formed a protective formation around Issei. "We enter together," she declared, making it clear this wasn't a request. Gabriel inclined her head in acceptance. "As you wish, daughter of Gremory." One by one, They stepped through the portal, first Gabriel, then Athena and the other deities, followed by Rias's group with Issei at the center. The transition felt like passing through a curtain of warm water, momentary resistance giving way to a sensation of cleansing. The chamber beyond defied ordinary architectural understanding. At first glance, it appeared to be a classical Roman basilica with soaring columns and intricate mosaics. But as Issei's newfound perception adjusted, he realized the entire structure existed in a pocket dimension, Anchor. To multiple supernatural realms simultaneously. Different sections of the chamber reflected the aesthetic sensibilities of various factions: angelic brightness, devilish opulence, divine majesty, and more subtle influences he couldn't immediately identify. At the center stood a massive circular table of material that seemed to shift depending on who viewed it. Around this table waited representatives of supernatural factions beyond Issei's wildest imagination. Michael, leader of heaven's forces, radiated golden light and compassionate authority. Beside him stood Uriel and Raphael, archangels of terrible power contained in beautiful forms. Opposite them, a man of such overwhelming charisma and subtle menace that he could only be Searzek's Lucifer, current Satan and Rias's older brother, headed the devil delegation. With him were other devil leaders, a beautiful silver-haired woman, a green-haired man with a perpetual smirk, and a childlike figure whose aura belied ancient power. Zeus himself represented the Greek pantheon, thunderbolts crackling subtly around his modern business suit. Odin One-Eye led the Norse contingent, his ravens perched on his shoulders. Amaterasu's solar radiance represented Shinto interests, while Anubis's jackal-headed form stood for the Egyptian divine. More pantheons and supernatural factions lined the chamber's circumference, their representatives watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. "Well," Issei muttered under his breath, "no pressure or anything." Rias squeezed his arm reassuringly. "They're here because they're afraid," she whispered. "Remember that. Power and fear often look the same." As their group approached the central table, conversations hushed. All eyes turned to assess Issei, this ordinary looking Japanese teenager allegedly housing the reincarnating essence of a war deity powerful enough to command heaven and hell's armies. Searzek was the first to break the silence, his voice melodious and perfectly pitched to carry throughout the chamber without seeming to shout. "Sister, you bring interesting company." His eyes fixed on Issei with penetrating intensity. "So this is the vessel." "His name is Issei Hyodo," Rias corrected firmly. "And he is more than a vessel." "Indeed," Zeus rumbled skeptically. "I see a mortal boy, not the commander who once organized pantheons against the void." "Appearances deceive, Thunderer," Athena countered, moving to stand beside Issei. "His divine essence returns gradually, but make no mistake, this is Belorum reborn." "Proof," demanded Anubis, his jackal voice echoing strangely. "The Egyptian pantheon requires more than Olympian assurance." Gabriel stepped forward, her 12 wings unfurling in a display of seraphic authority. "Heaven confirms the divine signature. This is the war god returning, as prophesied." "Ah yes, the prophecy," Searzek interjected smoothly. "Perhaps we should address that directly." He turned to Michael W. Ith a smile that managed to be both respectful and challenging. "Since heaven has guarded the text these past millennia," Michael's serene expression didn't waver. "The prophecy of final command was entrusted to all three major factions after the Void War. If heaven has preserved our copy more carefully than others, that is hardly our fault." Odin cackled, his ancient face creasing with amusement. "Always the same with you younger pantheons, squabbling over texts and predictions while ignoring the reality before you." His single eye fixed on Issei with disconcerting intensity. "Boy, you carry a fragment of divine weaponry, yes?" Issei nodded, hand automatically moving to the dagger at his waist. "Draw it," the All-Father commanded. "Let us see how it responds to you." All eyes turned expectantly to Issei. Feeling awkward but seeing no alternative, he drew the dagger fragment. As it left its sheath, the weapon pulsed with golden light, responding to the concentration of divine power in the chamber. The symbols etched into its surface glowed with inner fire, and the metal seemed to sing a note just beyond mortal hearing. "The divine spear fragment recognizes its master," Hephaestus confirmed gruffly. "My craftsmanship remembers the hand that wielded it." "A fragment responds to divine energy," Zeus dismissed. "That proves little." Then perhaps this will convince you, came a new voice. Smooth as silk and cold as midnight. All heads turned toward a previously empty section of the chamber. There stood a man of unearthly beauty, pale skin, raven hair, and eyes like the void between stars. 6 pairs of jet black wings extended from his back, their feathers seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Lucifer, Michael acknowledged tightly, his hand moving subtly toward the sword at his side. Brother, the fallen angel returned with a mocking bow. I received an invitation to this gathering. How could I refuse when the guest of honor is so familiar? The tension in the chamber thickened to near physical density. Issei felt power gathering as various factions prepared for potential conflict. Without conscious thought, he extended his own awareness, mapping vectors of attack and defense. Identifying priority targets should hostilities erupt. Lucifer's void dark eyes settled on Issei, recognition and something like amusement lighting their depths. You don't remember me yet, do you? Old friend, we fought side by side against the void. Your strategies guided my legions to victory when all seemed lost. Before Issei could respond, Sirzek interjected smoothly. Perhaps we should return to the matter of the prophecy. Since we have representatives of all major factions present, including, he inclined his head toward Lucifer, unexpected ones. Michael nodded, producing a scroll of material that seemed to shimmer between parchment and pure light. The prophecy of final command, as preserved by heaven since the conclusion of the Void War. He unrolled the scroll and began to read in a voice that resonated with divine authority. When darkness born of nothing breaches creation's wall, the scattered commander shall hear bottles call. Asterisk. Thrice fragmented essence in mortal shell bound. By blood of remembrance shall godhood be found. Asterisk. Heaven and hell united beneath strategic hand. Divine wisdom guiding the final command. Asterisk. The void hungers still for the power it fears. The God without name who transcended all tears. Asterisk. When cosmic dawn falters and shadows grow long. Asterisk. Bellorum returns to right ancient wrong. Silence fell as the words hung in the air, seeming to resonate with the very fabric of the pocket dimension. Issei felt them settle into his consciousness like missing puzzle pieces, clarifying aspects of his fragmented memories. Thrice fragmented essence, Athena murmured thoughtfully. Divine power, memory, and physical form, scattered across dimensions to prevent the void from consuming him completely. By blood of remembrance shall godhood be found, Rias added. The fragment responded to his blood, triggering the awakening. The God without name, Lucifer noted with a sardonic smile. Alwa, why so careful to avoid being bound by divine nomenclature? Ares, Mars, Bellorum, all masks for your true identity. Issei's head throbbed as conflicting memories tried to surface. I can't remember my true name. Nor should you attempt to, Odin warned sharply. Divine true names hold power beyond mortal comprehension. In your current state, such knowledge could shatter your human vessel. Amaterasu spoke for the first time, her voice like sunlight given sound. The prophecy confirms what we sense. This is indeed the war god returning, though incomplete. The question becomes, how do we proceed? We prepare for war, Sirzek answered simply. If the prophecy is correct, the void breaches creation's boundaries once more. We need unified defense protocols, communication systems, and command structures. Under whose authority? Zeus demanded. Olympus does not answer to hell or heaven. Nor does heaven recognize the authority of fallen entities, Michael added, glancing meaningfully at Lucifer. And yet, Gabriel interjected gently, the prophecy is clear. Heaven and hell united beneath strategic hand. History repeats itself. Bellorum must command us all, as before. Incredulous protests erupted from multiple factions. The concept of unified command under a partially awakened deity housed in a teenage human seemed absurd to many. Issei watched the arguments escalate. Tactical assessment automatically identifying pressure points in the developing conflict. Enough. The command cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. To everyone's surprise, including his own, it had come from Issei. The single word carried unexpected power, reverberating through the chamber with divine authority. Several lesser divine representatives actually took involuntary steps back. In the sudden silence, Issei spoke with calm precision. This bickering wastes time we don't have. The void entities I encountered were scouts, sensors, not soldiers. They were mapping, supernatural energy signatures and defensive capabilities. And how would you know this? Anubis questioned, though with noticeably more respect than before. Because it's what I would do, Issei answered simply. Send expendable reconnaissance units to gather tactical data before committing main forces. The Void is intelligent, patient, and strategic. It thinks as I do because we've opposed each other before. He stepped forward to the central table, the dagger fragment pulsing in his hand. With deliberate movements, he began tracing patterns on the table's surface, the dagger leaving glowing lines that formed a complex tactical display. Based on the void-touched creatures, movement patterns and energy signatures, I can identify 3 primary breach points developing. The display expanded to show a map of dimensional boundaries with glowing red nodes. Here, and here, each corresponding to a major ley line convergence. The supernatural leaders leaned forward despite themselves. Professional interest overcoming skepticism. The tactical display was elegant in its precision, conveying complex strategic information with remarkable clarity. The Void doesn't attack randomly, Issei continued, his voice gaining confidence with each word. It seeks specific targets in specific sequence. First, isolated supernatural entities to gather intelligence. Next, dimensional weak points to establish beachheads. Finally, power sources to fuel larger breaches. He looked up, meeting the gazes of the assembled powers. We have perhaps days before secondary incursions begin. Weeks before major breaches. Our advantage is knowledge and preparation time. Advantages we're squandering with political posturing. Sears leaned back, a smile playing at his lips. He speaks like a commander, wouldn't you agree, Michael? Quote. The Archangel nodded slowly. The strategic assessment is sound. Heaven's scouts have detected dimensional thinning at precisely the locations he identified. As have Hell's, Sears confirmed. Which suggests his tactical insights remain intact, even if his full power has yet to manifest. Odin stroked his beard thoughtfully. The boy may wear mortal flesh, but the mind is Belorum's. The All-Father recognizes the strategist who once saved Asgard from consumption. One by one, the faction leaders indicated reluctant agreement. Whatever their doubts about Issei's identity, his tactical analysis was irrefutable. The threat assessment aligned with their own intelligence, and the strategic recommendations were sound. So we are agreed? Gabriel asked, looking around the table. Unified response under Belorum's strategic direction. Tentatively, Zeus qualified, subject to ongoing evaluation of his capabilities and the actual manifestation of the Void threat. Reasonable, Athena acknowledged, though we must establish communication protocols and response hierarchies immediately. The discussion shifted to logistics and command structures. Faction leaders setting aside millennia of conflict in the face of existential threat. Issei contributed where appropriate, tactical insights flowing more naturally as he embraced this aspect of his awakening identity. As the summit progressed, Issei became aware of being watched with particular intensity by Lucifer. The fallen angel's expression held recognition and something more complex, a history Issei couldn't yet remember but sensed was significant. During a brief recess, Lucifer approached him directly, moving with preternatural grace. Up close, the fallen archangel's beauty was almost painful to behold. Perfection twisted by pride and defiance. You truly don't remember, do you? Lucifer asked quietly. Our bargain, our alliance against the Void. I remember fragments, Issei admitted cautiously. Commanding armies that included fallen angels. Strategic decisions that saved countless lives on all sides. More than that, Lucifer insisted. You understood my rebellion when others condemned it. You saw the strategic necessity of balance, heaven's rigid order balanced by hell's creative chaos. Before Issei could respond, Rias appeared at his side, her presence deliberately placing herself between him and the fallen angel. My brother requests your input on perimeter defense strategies, she said to Issei, though her eyes never left Lucifer. The fallen angel smiled, amusement dancing in his void dark eyes. Protective, little Gremory, how interesting. He stepped back with elegant courtesy. We'll continue our conversation another time, Belorum. When you remember more, and need allies beyond heaven's reach. As Lucifer withdrew, Rias relaxed fractionally. Be careful with him, she warned in a low voice. Lucifer plays games within games. Every word has multiple meanings. every gesture calculated for maximum effect. You sound like you're speaking from experience, Issei observed. Something complicated flickered across Rias's beautiful features. Devil politics are treacherous enough. Fallen angel politics are lethal. And Lucifer himself is in a category all his own. Their conversation was interrupted as the summit reconvened. Sirs, X called the gathering to order with smooth authority, his charisma filling the chamber. We have established preliminary protocols for information sharing and response coordination, he announced. Each faction will designate liaison officers to a central command structure. For the moment, we propose housing this command center in neutral territory, specifically, the dimensional nexus beneath Kuo Town. Under whose protection? Zeus demanded immediately. Joint protection, Michael suggested. Representatives from each major faction maintaining a rotating security detail. And command authority? Anubis questioned, his jackal gaze fixed on Issei. Sirzek smiled diplomatically. Advisory from our awakening strategist, executive distributed among faction representatives based on territorial jurisdiction. Issei recognized the elegant compromise, giving him strategic input while maintaining the faction leader's authority over their own forces. It was politically necessary but tactically problematic. That creates decision-making bottlenecks during crisis response, he pointed out. The void won't wait while committees debate. What do you suggest? Athena asked, clearly, already knowing his answer but wanting him to articulate it. Cheered authority, Issei replied without hesitation. Normal operations maintain distributed command. Crisis protocols activate unified command under whoever holds territorial jurisdiction, with strategic authority invested in. He hesitated, still uncomfortable claiming divine status. In Bellorum, Gabriel completed for him. Or Issei Hyodo, as he currently identifies, the war god who previously defeated the void. Murmurs of both approval and concern rippled through the gathering. Sirzek raised a hand for silence. We can establish provisional crisis protocols along these lines, he acknowledged. Subject to review as the situation develops and as our young friends' divine reintegration progresses. The political compromise satisfied most factions, and the summit proceeded to assign specific responsibilities and resources. Throughout the remainder of the discussion, Issei found his tactical insights flowing more naturally. Divine knowledge integrating with his human perspective to create unique strategic approaches. As the summit neared conclusion, a subtle change in air pressure alerted Issei's heightened senses to danger. Without thinking, he grabbed Rias and dove sideways, pulling her clear as a section of the chamber's ceiling collapsed inward. Through the breach poured a torrent of void touche. D creatures, no longer the relatively simple scouts from the previous day, but more evolved forms with articulated limbs and focused malevolence. Perimeter breach. Michael's voice rang out as he manifested a sword of pure light. Defensive positions. Chaos erupted as the carefully managed political tensions exploded into combat. Divine, angelic, demonic, and other supernatural powers manifest. D in dazzling display as faction leaders defended themselves and their subordinates. Issei's tactical mind shifted instantly to battle mode. The dagger fragment in his hand elongated and transformed, becoming a short spear that hummed with golden energy. His perception expanded, mapping the three-dimensional battlefield and calculating optimal response patterns. Sirzek, containment left quadrant. He called out, Zeus, Odin, aerial suppression, Gabriel, purification barrier around civilians. To his surprise and gratification, the faction leaders responded instantly to his commands, Sentu. Rise of divine and supernatural pride set aside in the face of coordinated attack. Sirzek unleashed waves of destruction energy that herded the void entities into killing zones. Zeus and Odin combine, ed lightning and runic powers to prevent additional creatures from entering through the breach. Gabriel's golden barrier protected non-combatants while Michael led a counteroffensive alongside Lucifer, ancient enemies temporarily united. Rias and her peerage formed a protective detail around Issei, though he quickly demonstrated he needed minimal protection. The spear fragment moved through his hands with natural grace, each strike precisely calculated to disable or destroy void entities with maximum efficiency. "They're targeting you specifically," Athena observed as she fought at his side. Her own spear dispatching void creatures with elegant precision. "This attack is focused on elimination, not reconnaissance. They remember me," Issei realized, divine knowledge surfacing through combat focus. The void retains knowledge of its previous defeat, which confirms your identity beyond doubt, Rias added, unleashing her power of destruction in a controlled arc that cleared their immediate vicinity. The battle flowed across the chamber, supernatural powers working in coordinated harmony under Issei's tactical direction. What might have been a catastrophic free-for-all instead became a masterclass in strategic combat. Each faction's unique abilities leveraged for maximum effectiveness. As the conflict intensified, Issei felt something shifting within him, divine essence responding to battle necessity. Awakening further with each tactical decision. Knowledge and power flowed more freely, memories of cosmic warfare providing templates for current action. A particularly SSIVE void entity, clearly a command unit, broke through the defensive line and charged directly toward Issei. Before anyone could intercept, it unleashed a beam of pure void energy that should have annihilated him instantly. Instead, Issei's body moved with divine reflex, the spear fragment spinning in his hands to intercept and somehow absorb the attack. Golden light battled void darkness as is. I felt his very essence straining against dissolution. It's trying to consume your divine power, Athena warned, attempting to reach him through the chaotic melee. Issei understood instinctively, void hungered for his essence specifically because it was the power that had previously defeated it. In that moment of clarity, he stopped resisting and instead channeled the void energy through himself and back into the spear fragment, creating a circuit of power. The chamber filled with blinding light as divine and void energies collided and transmuted. When vision cleared, the command entity had been reduced to dissolving particles, and Issei stood unharmed, though visibly drained. The spear fragment in his hand had changed, growing slightly longer and inscribed with additional symbols that glowed with inner fire. He absorbed and redirected void energy, Gabriel observed with awe. Such manipulation should be impossible for a partially awakened deity. Unless, Lucifer suggested with a knowing smile, his awakening accelerates under combat conditions, as one would expect from a war god. With the command unit destroyed, the remaining void entities lost cohesion. The combined might of the supernatural factions made short work of them, sealing the breach through which they had entered with layered barriers of divine, angelic, and demonic power. As the dust settled, the faction leaders gathered around Issei, their expressions ranging from newfound respect to calculating assessment. Well, Sirzek said lightly, though his eyes were serious, I believe that concludes the debate about command authority during crisis situations. Indeed, Zeus acknowledged grudgingly. The boy, Bellorum, directed us with remarkable effectiveness. His tactical commands saved many lives, Michael added, including preventing friendly fire incidents between factions unaccustomed to fighting alongside one another. Odin approached Issei directly, his ancient face creased with the weight of knowledge. You're remembering more now, aren't you, boy? The battle accelerated the process. Issei nodded, still processing the flood of memories and knowledge that combat had unlocked. It's like a dam breaking. Things I didn't know I knew were suddenly accessible. A dangerous acceleration, Athena cautioned. Too rapid reintegration could overwhelm your human consciousness. But necessary, Gabriel countered. The void clearly recognizes him and will continue targeting him specifically. He needs his power to defend himself. What he needs, Rias interjected protectively, is rest and processing time. His human body has limits, regardless of the divine essence it contains. Lucifer watched the exchange with obvious amusement. Always the same arguments, even millennia later. Some concerned with power, others with its containment. His void dark eyes fixed on Issei. But the choice was always his, wasn't it? That's what made Bellorum unique among deities. His strategic autonomy transcended pantheon politics. Something about Lucifer's words resonated with Issei's awakening memories. Yes, he had maintained independence despite commanding unified forces. His authority had derived not from political position but from strategic necessity and proven effectiveness. The summit achieved its primary objectives, he stated, bringing focus back to immediate concerns. We've confirmed the void threat, established communication protocols, and demonstrated unified response capability. Now we need to implement the defensive strategies we've outlined before larger breaches occur. Sirzek nodded approvingly. Succinctly put, each faction will deploy resources according to the agreed distribution. The command center beneath Kuo town will be operational within 48 hours. And Issei's protection detail, Rias asked pointedly, remains your responsibility, sister, Sirzex replied with a knowing smile. With supplemental support as needed from our diverse allies. The summit concluded with formal agreements and diplomatic farewells that barely concealed the underlying tensions still present despite the unified response to attack. As the various factions departed through their respective dimensional portals, Issei found himself exhausted beyond mere physical fatigue. His very soul seemed drained by the rapid acceleration of his divine awakening. Gabriel approached him before departing, her radiance dimmed to accommodate his weary state. You did well today, Bellorum, or Issei, as you prefer. The unification of diverse factions, even temporarily, is no small achievement. I didn't do anything special, Issei protested weakly. Just pointed out the obvious tactical approaches. Leadership often consists of articule, aiding what others sense but cannot formulate, the seraphim observed with a gentle smile. It was your characteristic talent in the divine realms as well. She hesitated, then added more quietly, Avean remembers your sacrifice to seal the void. Whatever complications arise from your re-emergence, know that you have allies among the seraphim. Before Issei could respond, Gabriel leaned forward and placed a light kiss on his forehead. The touch sent cascades of warm energy through his system, rejuvenating his depleted reserves and soothing the chaotic integration of his awakening memories. Until we meet again, she murmured. Then vanished in a flash of golden light. Athena observed this interaction with an unreadable expression. The seraphim has always had a particular regard for you, she noted as she approached. Even before your sacrifice. I don't remember the details, Issei admitted. Just fragments of joint campaigns, strategic discussions. It will return in time, Athena assured him. Though perhaps not all memories would be wise to recover while maintaining human form. She studied his face intently, as if memorizing his human features. You should know that our awakening has consequences beyond the immediate void threat. Divine politics are complicated. Your return shifts balances established over millennia of your absence. Great, Issei muttered. More politics. Athena's laugh was surprisingly warm. Some things never change. Your distaste for political maneuvering was legendary, even as you excelled at strategic diplomacy. Is there a difference? Issei asked wearily. Politics serves individual or factional interests. Strategy serves objective purpose. She clasped his shoulder briefly. Rest. Integrate what you've remembered today. Olympus stands ready when you call. With that, she too departed, leaving Issei alone with Rias and her peerage. The crimson-haired devil approached, concern evident in her beautiful features. How are you feeling? She asked softly. Like my brain is trying to download the entire internet through a dial-up connection, Issei replied with weak humor. So much information, so many memories, and none of it feels completely mine yet. Rias nodded understanding. My brother has arranged secure transportation back to Kuo. You'll stay at my family's estate tonight. The defenses there are substantial. And you clearly need protected recovery time. Too exhausted to argue, Issei allowed himself to be guided through a devil transportation circle. As reality shifted around him, he reflected on the day's revelations and advancements. He had confirmed his identity as a reincarnating war deity, established a multi-faction alliance against cosmic threat, and survived targeted assassination by void entities. Not bad for someone who, days ago, had been worried about completing his math homework. The Gremory estate materialized around them, a European-style mansion of impossible proportions situated in a pocket dimension adjacent to the underworld proper. Elegant furnishings and old-world luxury surrounded them, though Issei was too exhausted to properly appreciate the opulence. This way, Rias guided him through elaborate hallways to a suite of rooms that would have put five-star hotels to shame. These will be your quarters whenever you stay with us. I've taken the liberty of having some clothes and essentials prepared. Quote, my parents, Issei remembered suddenly. They'll worry if I don't come home. Already addressed, Rias assured him. A message has been sent indicating you're attending an impromptu school trip. Perception manipulation will prevent them from questioning the arrangement. Under normal circumstances, Issei might have objected to such casual manipulation of his family. In his current state, he could only be grateful for the practical solution. Thank you, he said sincerely. For everything today, your support during the summit, the battle. Rias's expression softened, a genuine smile replacing her diplomatic mask. You were magnificent, you know. Commanding beings who have lived for thousands of years, making them work together despite ancient enmities. Even my brother was impressed, and he's not easily impressed. I just did what seemed logical, Issei demurred, uncomfortable with praise for abilities he was still coming to terms with. And that's precisely what makes you special, Rias countered. She stepped closer, her scent, a subtle mixture of roses and something more primal, enveloping him. Many deities command through fear or obligation. You command through earned respect and strategic brilliance. The proximity of her beautiful form would normally have sent teenage Issei into hormonal overload. Now, his awakening divine perception added new dimensions to her appeal. He could sense the power flowing beneath her skin, the ancient bloodline that made House Gremory extraordinary even among devils. You should rest, she said, reluctantly stepping back. Tomorrow we begin implementing our defensive strategies. You'll need your strength. As she turned to leave, Issei called after her, Rias. Why did your family have a fragment of my divine weapon buried beneath Kuo Academy? She paused at the doorway, a complicated expression crossing her features. That's a longer conversation. One we should have when you're rested. With a final smile, she departed, closing the door softly behind her. Alone at last, Issei collapsed onto a bed larger and more comfortable than any he'd ever experienced. The spear fragment rested beside him, its golden energy pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. As exhaustion claimed him, more memories filtered through his dreams, cosmic battles, strategic councils, alliances forged and broken across dimensional planes. Belorum, the war god who commanded the armies of heaven and hell. Reborn as Issei Hyodo, ordinary high school student with extraordinary destiny. The integration continued, human and divine gradually becoming something new, something unique in the history of creation. The void had found him. The factions had acknowledged him. The prophecy was unfolding, and somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, an ancient hunger stirred, sensing the return of its greatest adversary. Chapter 2 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.